Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Full Steam Ahead podcast. I'm your host, Zoe. Cantu's not with us today, but we do have a special guest in the house, Locked On Dodgers uh, host for their podcast, Vince Samperio, as we're going to be talking about this Astros versus Dodgers preview, 10:47 Central Time, but over there in LA in California, 8:47 Pacific Time. So, Vince, appreciate you logging on and talking some baseball with me, man.
Yeah, man. Shout out to the schedule makers. Dodgers had an early game today, so or else we'd be playing right now. So
Oh man, I mean, like when the Astros travel to the West Coast, either the Athletics, the Angels, or the Mariners, and then they got a getaway day. It's kind of like, well, shit, and it's like 8 something o'clock. And the guys have to come back, play in Houston, get here 7 o'clock game. But actually, this year though, for the Astros this season, West Coast, the times over there hasn't really affected them on their getaway days. It's usually like around 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock for those type
yeah,
of games.
MLB's done a good job the last few years of getting more Wednesday, Thursday getaway days, early days if they can. So that works out.
Yeah, but like I had said, episode 199, Astros versus Dodgers preview, we're going to title this because this is the 2017 World Series rematch. A lot of banter from the Astros fans, a lot of banter from Dodger fans. We're going to share what we're looking for the series for these players, teams as well. Trade rumors going around because the trade deadline is literally next. Well, this coming new week on Tuesday or Wednesday. He'll put his input on the Dodgers. I'll throw my share of things with the Astros. And then for both teams, what's the World Series chances for them to get back to obviously trying to hold the commissioner's trophy? But Vince, I gotta say, man, Dodger Nation over there in LA, they have a big travel fan base. Wherever they go, like wherever the Dodgers travel to, I mean, they're throwing a parade on the street. I remember seeing a tweet on when they were in New York. They were right there in the Bronx in Yankee Stadium, going into the jungle, man.
Yeah, they travel well in general, and then there's a travel group called Pantone 294. They set up like travel, get a bunch of tickets, so they'll actually be in Houston for Saturday's game, I believe. So they'll be marching towards Minute Maid on Saturday before the game. So we might see a couple more videos out from Houston this weekend.
How many people do you like kind of estimate fans coming into like when they travel to different ballparks? You would
Yeah,
say.
they usually do at least 250. I don't know what this actual trip is. I know New York was like closer to 1,000. Like their first New York trip was
Wow.
like 500. Yeah, they really grown the last few years, and they get it pretty big for the major cities. So Houston, I would imagine, is gonna get a
Yeah.
crowd. So they might be past 250, maybe into the 500.
Man, that's pretty cool. I mean, Astro fans do travel well too, but you don't usually see fans carrying a banner marching down the street going into the stadium. So I think that's pretty cool, at least for like baseball fans in general. But I mean, y'all season, Dodgers in general, it's kind of been up and down. I mean, y'all been battling, Dodgers been battling with a bunch of injuries. You have starting pitchers, you got some of your most unique players, MVPs, guys like that that's been kind of downplayed with those injuries. I mean, to me, how would you describe this Dodger season? Because right now, 62 and 42, second in the National League with the best, kind of almost the best record, but just behind the Phillies. I mean, I think that's pretty impressive, not just having your MVPs and other notable players.
Yeah, it's been weird. The first like month of the season, they were around 500. Since like May, towards the end of May, they've been around 500. They had one hot stretch in there where they were like 15, 16 games
Mhm.
over 500, and that's basically what's kind of carried them this season. Yeah, it's been a lot of injuries. Muncy going down early on kind of helped. Mookie obviously going down. Guys that weren't hitting that were supposed to be hitting, like James Outman was uh, top 3 in Rookie of the Year last year and went down to the minors like not even a couple months into the season. You had Gavin Lux, who was hitting under 200 up until a few weeks ago, and then obviously Kershaw just made his debut. Glasnow has been good for the most part. He just came off the IL. Yamamoto's been out for a couple months, so it's been weird. It's similar to the last couple of years where they they end up winning 100 games, but it's not always as fun to watch.
Yeah, the same thing over here in Houston. I mean, the Astros from the get go of the season, you already have Jose Urquidy on the injured list. Next thing you know, Christian Javier misses a start. That turns out to be Tommy John surgery for him. Jose Urquidy attempted to try to come back. Next thing you know, he's having Tommy John. Framber missing a start here and there. Right now, Justin Verlander's battling neck discomfort. So Houston, where they're at right now, shoot, they were 10 games behind in the AL West and they made a run. They got back into the race and now they're leading the division by one game. Obviously, the Mariners are still going to be there. Rangers are starting to get hot right now, but kind of I'd see both teams just battling through adversity. I mean, through injuries like Yamamoto being one of the biggest signings for y'all, Shohei Otani, of course, being the huge signing, but Yamamoto being that guy that the Dodgers had signed for, being the starting rotation this year.
Yeah, these are two teams that at the end of the day you expect them to be in the playoffs, even as bad as Astros were early on. You kind of thought, okay, they're gonna make a run at some point, especially with the lineup they have, and even to being down the pitchers. And you guys called up a few pitchers; they've been doing well. So it's one of those things where at the end of the day, you expect Dodgers and Astros to be playing in October almost every year at this point.
Yeah, most definitely. I think both teams are actually going to play in October. The beginning of the season, I was kind of like, well, Astros weren't doing it. They were like 7-19 in their first 26 games. They weren't playing great baseball. Offense was a slump. Starting pitching was kind of getting hit here and there. And then next thing you know, they just came out of nowhere and just do what they do. I mean, there are a bunch of veterans on that team like Bregman, Altuve, Alvarez, Tucker. And then the other thing about it, too, I mean, Kyle Tucker was literally an early MVP for the American League in the beginning of the season. He goes down to an injury, and the Astros are still dominating, um, winning into that AL West, becoming first place. So it's been a roller coaster for both teams, but like you said, I think a lot of baseball fans, analysts, writers, all of them type of big names knew that the Astros are going to make it. The Dodgers are going to make it in the postseason no matter what.
That's what it comes down to. I mean, Tucker, yeah, that's a big one too. And I've seen some tweets recently about him and kind of what's up with him or when we're going to hear about him. But they'll be fine. The Rangers will probably be the team to worry about more so than the Mariners at this point, unless there's some big trades that happen the next few days. But even so, like it feels like Astros are inevitable in that AL West.
I mean, well, right now, y'all have a comfortable league in that National League was 62-42, like I had mentioned. I think the Diamondbacks are right behind you on second place, but like 7.5 coming from first place. Astros are going to be battling this AL West like last year all over again from the Rangers and Mariners. But it should be fun. It should be fun for both teams. Like you said, they're both October teams that they should be playing the postseason when you look at their rosters on paper. But the Dodgers are 9-5 against the Houston Astros since the 2017 World Series. Not a lot of players from this 2017 rosters for both teams. I think on the top of my head, at least for the Astros, you still got Alex Bregman, you still got Jose Altuve, Lance McCullers Jr., which he hasn't played really this whole season, even last season, and Justin Verlander. So four from the roster. Not knowing at the top of my head for the Dodgers, I think Kike Hernandez is one.
Yeah,
Clayton
it's like
Kershaw.
Kike Kershaw, Taylor, Barnes. I think that's it.
Yeah, so I mean, different times. I mean, shoot, we're like 7 years from that World Series, but a lot of fans, like I said, a lot of Astro fans, a lot of Dodger fans still love to give each other some banter over one another. But they did come out with the pitchers of this 3-game series. Framber Valdez will be going for the Astros in game one, Ronel Blanco for game two, and the rookie Spencer Arrighetti for game three. I believe for y'all, it's Gavin Stone, Justin Robleski, if I'm saying that right, correct?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, for him. And then I think third game, y'all don't have a starting pitcher because last time I recall, James Paxton was pitching that series finale against the Red Sox.
Yeah. So James Paxton got DFA'd. So they might call someone up. They might go bullpen, or they might just slot someone in there that already pitched. Or it might be somebody they trade for. Or no, yeah, I guess it could technically, but probably not. But it's possible, I guess.
Man, you never know. I mean, the
Yeah.
kind of the trade deadline has already started. AJ Pugh just got traded to the Diamondbacks.
Yeah.
So one domino fell, and next thing you know, all of them start crashing down. Um, but I mean, Dodgers and Astros, very, very well known in the baseball world. What are we looking for in this three-game series? Shohei Otani's returning back in a Dodger uniform. Obviously, he's with his time being the AL West with the Los Angeles Angels. Freddie Freeman, y'all have a bunch of players on there. Teoscar Hernandez was a former Astro. I mean, what are you looking forward for this Dodger team going into this three-game series against the Astros?
Yeah, I think it's really for the Dodgers right now. It's about starting pitching and getting deeper into games. They've they've only had one starter since All Star break go into the sixth inning, and that was a guy making his MLB debut. So it's been a little rough in terms of getting deep. They've had to tax the bullpen a little bit. It kind of hurt them on Wednesday when they had to stick with a guy for an extra inning one because they just didn't really have arms. Like they weren't gonna waste somebody or potentially get a guy going on 3 days in a row or 4 out of the last 5 games in order to try to steal one game. So I think for Gavin Stone and Robleski, it's about getting deep into a game. That Astro offense is going to be ready for them, and you got the Crawford boxes out there in left field, so it could be an offensive matchup. But hopefully they keep it down on that, and that's really what I'm looking forward to. Obviously, the offense and Otani and everyone else is key, but the Dodgers need their starting pitching to kind of settle back in order to make the equilibrium of the team work out. Because if the starting pitching's hurting, then the bullpen gets taxed, then the bullpen gives up runs, and the offense has to score more runs. And realistically, the Dodgers just don't have enough consistent bats healthy right now to like play from behind or play to like score 5+ runs. They're winning a lot of games 3-2, 4-5, or 4-5-4, or whatever like that. So
Yeah, just to remind everybody, y'all's injury list, the Dodgers injury list: Mookie Betts, Yamamoto, Walker Buehler, Tony Gosselin, Brusar Gratterall, which that's a key piece in y'all's bullpen, Dustin May, Emmett Sheehan, and then Max Muncy, like he had mentioned before. I mean, that is a bunch of starters on that
yeah, and then
injured
this
list.
week Rojas and Taylor just went down. So, and not that they're like you know all stars, but they're starters on the team right now. And
Mhm.
so yeah, they just picked up. Actually worked out. They picked up the shortstop Nick Ahmed, and he ended up hitting a
Mhm.
go-ahead homer against the Giants, who had just released them a few weeks ago. So that was a fun little nugget.
Yeah, and y'all did take the series against the Giants, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
Yeah, 3 out of 4.
3 out of 4. Um, but it was interesting to see Shohei Otani be the leadoff hitter in that last series finale game against the Giants. Maybe I don't know if he'll be the leadoff hitter in this series in the Astros, but the Astros, for them, starting pitching just wasn't there in that last series against Oakland. Oakland has been playing great baseball in the month of July. Lawrence Butler has been on a tear. Zach Gallo, Shane Langoliers, they got a great young core over there. What I'm looking for is the starting pitching in this matchup against a great offensive lineup that carries Shohei Otani, Teoscar Hernandez, who just won the home run derby, and then you got Freddie Freeman, who's a former MVP too. You got to attack them guys very, very, very importantly. Framber Valdez is going to be the number one guy. He was a guy that was in Cy Young voties back in 2022. Um, in the second half of that last season, in last year in 23, he just looked very different. What Angel and I are looking for is for him to have a bounce back in the second half, more look like that guy in 2022. And then for Ronel Blanco, I think he's just been one of the most unsung heroes in this Astros starting rotation. He's just done a phenomenal job. That was one of our MVPs in the first half of this season because he's contributed in a big way with all the starting pitchers going down with some type of injury or just not pitching well this season. So the pitch that's been helping him was that changeup. I don't know Dodgers, Freddie Freeman, Shohei Otani, how they go off in the off speed, but that changeup, El Cambio, has been one of the biggest impactful pitches this season for him. And then Spencer Rigetti, obviously he's a rookie. He's still getting up there in games. This is going to be his 19th start of his young career, but he's pitched really well with the brightest lights on him. When you go against teams like the Atlanta Braves, the Cleveland Guardians, the Texas Rangers, them are some big bats in that lineup. And he's just done a really good job giving up less than 3 earned runs against those type of teams. So in this matchup, I'm really looking at pitching, how starting pitching is going to go. Because if your starting pitching isn't there, like you were mentioning about the Dodgers, then it's going to be a long night for the bullpen. And like you were saying too, Astros bullpen with Taylor Scott, Seth Martinez, a lot of those middle relief guys have been getting taxed a lot. So very important for, I guess you could say, for both teams. Starting rotations have to be very important.
Yeah, and that's what it seems like. And it's one of those where if you have a good night on Friday night and get the starter out early, then you kind of set yourself up for the rest of the weekend because you see guys, you get more arms out there. So I think obviously the Friday matchup, Apple TV matchup, so
Yeah.
maybe not as watched as some other games for those people that don't have Apple TV. But yeah, man, we'll see what happens. But it'll definitely be a good matchup between the Dodgers have surprisingly, compared to years past, played well against good teams over
Mhm.
500. So maybe they'll continue that trend. And but again, they got to play to what they are, and that's right now winning low scoring games.
What do you think is going to be the number one guy that you're going to see that needs to step up in a series like this, especially? What guy like stands out? I would say.
Yeah, I mean it's easy to say Otani just because he's the kind of the driver of everything, but I think facing good starting pitching, you're gonna get what you get out of Otani and Freeman. Like they're gonna get their hits here and there. It's gonna come down to Teo and Will Smith kind of being able to drive them in or keep the momentum going. Because when you get down to the bottom of the lineup, it's Gavin Lux has been hot recently, but still on the year wasn't great. Kike Hernandez is now playing a little bit more because of injuries. He had a good week, but he's been really bad this season. So it's just a lot of inconsistency once you get past like number 4 in the Dodger lineup right now.
Mhm.
So I'm looking for that top of the order to kind of hold it down and put some runs up. And the bottom of the order did really well this last week, but you don't know if they're going to be able to continue that.
It's kind of the same thing for the Astros as well. We can I can say Jordan Alvarez and Jose Altuve, Alex Bregman, at the top of my head, which are going to be your guys in the top four of your lineup. Yonder Diaz has been really good too for them as of late. I think he's like the second in RBIs on the team behind Alvarez, but I think for me, it's going to be Jeremy Pena and Jake Myers. Jake Myers has been one of those guys too in that middle part of the lineup that's been really producing for them with runners in scoring position. Specifically, same thing goes for JP3. Pena's been doing a really good job holding it down either in that 5 or 6 spot, wherever Joe Espada puts him in, and he's been hitting the ball really well compared to the season he had last year. Last year was kind of a down sophomore slump, I guess you can kind of say, but in year 3, he's looked like a very different hitter, very approachable at the plate, discipline as well. So I would say those two guys for the Astros standpoint of kind of making an impact when Alvarez and the top of the lineup isn't going. Maybe your middle guys can help you out in that bottom of the order as well.
It, they're very similar teams right now at the moment, so it's going to be a fun matchup. Obviously, the Dodgers Astros part of it is always going to get social media going just based
Yeah.
on kind of what we learned in 2020 about the 2017 season. But yeah, it's two good team or two teams playing well enough right now,
Mhm.
and have obviously their flaws, but they can get past it.
Is Gavin Stone a rookie? I'm not mistaken. Is this his second year in the league, or is it he's still a rookie?
He's still qualified as a rookie,
Okay.
but he pitched a few games last year. Didn't pitch very well last year, but really turned it around so far this season. So
Yeah. So then they'll have two rookies starting this series. Ronel Blanco's kind of
it
almost the same
might be
thing. So.
three because River Ryan pitched Monday. They
Mhm.
could slot him in Sunday, and then there would be three rookies. So yeah, we'll see.
Never know. You never know. But the Dodgers did have the Astros number last year. A lot of those games last year in that 3-game series at Dodger Stadium just came down to one run, surprisingly. But the Dodgers did take 2 out of 3 from the Astros. But like you said, it's going to be a fun series um, for both teams that should be going into the postseason. But let's move on to the trade rumors because both teams are going to be looking to add on to help their teams get better. Let's start off with the Dodgers because, like I've gave out that injury list, a lot of starting pitching look like that's kind of a priority that they need. Maybe an outfielder as well. I think y'all have Jason Hayward, Kike Hernandez is out there, Miguel Vargas, Andy Pajes, James Outman. So y'all don't have kind of that veteran besides Hayward. So tell us, I mean, what kind of players the Dodgers could be scratching for at this deadline?
Yeah, it definitely looks like. I mean, they need one starting pitcher, ideally a guy that can throw a game one or two of a series, just because you don't know. Yamamoto started throwing recently, but it's a shoulder thing. You don't really know how he's gonna come back from that. And realistically, it's July. You got 2 months of baseball left, and you kind of need him to throw at least one of those months to kind of get back into it. So, obviously the names that they've been linked to is Scooble and Garrett Crochet from the White Sox, but we saw today that Garrett Crochet kind of had some demands out there that if you're gonna trade for him and you want him to pitch in October, he needs an extension and he doesn't want to come out of the bullpen. And
Hmm.
even though he's never thrown this many innings before, so that makes it a little more interesting. Then you can kind of take the next tier of like pitchers, Jack Flaherty, and guys like that who would help, but who knows if they're enough for like the Dodgers, who have reported. Andrew Friedman said they're kind of looking for like big game hunting. They're not really going for minimal trades. They're kind of going for guys that are really going to help out. And then, like you said, offensively in the outfield is what I really need is a shortstop because Mookie Betts played shortstop early in the year. He's going to come back in a few weeks, but he just never got to the point defensively where you're like, oh yeah, like Mookie's our shortstop type of deal. So but there's not really any shortstops available, so they're gonna have to see what they do there. But Teoscar Hernandez is really the only consistent outfielder you have, and then you have all the guys you mentioned who have are hit or miss. So you kind of need one more guy. Randy Rosarena is really fun name to throw around. Just me being at the World Baseball Classic in last year and kind of seeing the Randy show on Team
Yeah.
Mexico was really fun. So and then I really want them to get a Rosarena and Isaac Paredes together because you don't know Max Muncy's dealing with an oblique issue. He's already missed way more time than they thought. And
Hmm.
oblique, you can't fix it with surgery or anything, so you don't
Yeah.
really know when he's going to come back. But I know Paredes is a guy that has already been said the Astros would be a perfect fit for the Astros. Astro fans are clamoring for him. I saw a thing today about his hit chart at Minute Maid Park, and I think he picks up a couple extra home runs at that stadium.
Yeah, I mean, I think Randy Rosarena would be a perfect fit. I think Mark Feinstein had even mentioned that he's a notable player that the Dodgers are kind of expressing interest in. But I think Randy Rosarena would fit perfectly in a Dodger uniform. Honestly, a lot of Latinos over there in LA, especially Chavez Ravine, would be thrilled to have a guy like him. So I think Randy's another one. I think Luis Robert Jr. could be too. But if you're gonna throw guys like that, I'm guessing you're gonna throw top prospects. My big guess, maybe a guy like Miguel Vargas too, that could be out the door. Andy Paz has been playing a little bit of good baseball here and there. What top prospects do y'all have actually in y'all's farm system right now?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the guys are not prospects anymore, like Pajes and Miguel Vargas. But Vargas doesn't really have a defensive position. The Dodgers are set at DH for the next decade with Otani, so it might be one where he becomes expendable. Pajes could be expendable if you're getting another outfielder back. River Ryan was one of their top pitching prospects. He just made his debut the other day. So beyond that, it goes into Diego Cartaya, who's a catcher, who's on the 40-man roster already. He was a top prospect 2 years ago, had a really bad year last year, kind of recovered from it a little bit this year. But they have a lot of catchers. They have Dalton Rushing, who's another one of their top prospects, also on the 40-man roster. So, one of those guys probably has to go because they have another catcher right behind them and Titan Liranzo, who is younger, but, would be coming up the pipeline. Will Smith signed for like 10 years. So they don't necessarily even need a catcher per se other than
Mhm.
a guy that's going to back up. So those are the guys there. Pitching wise, they got a couple guys that got hurt that aren't going to be traded. A lot of guys are already in the majors, so probably not going to get traded. If you're, maybe a guy like Robleski who pitches Saturday could fit that mold because he's not necessarily in the rotation, and if they're going to get back somebody in the starter role, then they wouldn't necessarily need him. But the Josue De Paula is probably like the main one that maybe some Dodger fans would want to be untouchable. He's super young. He's in high A right now, outfielder. But I think this is one of the first times in a few years where I don't think the Dodgers have any untouchable prospects, and they might just have to go big.
Yeah, I could see that. And two, the Dodgers did recently just made a trade with the Rays in the offseason with Ryan Pepiot, right? Correct, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, Ryan Pepio and
Pepio, my fault.
yeah, Johnny DeLuca for Glasnow. So
And the Rays kind of need catching depth. I mean, their catching isn't the strength of that team. So maybe throwing a guy like you were saying, Diego Cartaya could be a guy that the Rays can use. I know for the Astros, East, like you were saying, Isaac Paredes is like the number one guy if we're talking about offensively that the Astros are going to target just for his numbers, his spray chart. If you looked on it, a lot of balls were hit to the left side. He's a very pull hitter, and the extra base hits can be there for him, especially with the Crawford boxes over there. But real quick, to lastly on the trade rumors for the Dodgers, was it going to take to get a guy like a Garrett Crochet or even a package with him and Luis Robert Jr. from the Dodgers? Is it going to be a ton of prospects? Is it going to be a mixture of MLB ready talent that's already played with the Dodgers? I mean, what's your perspective on that?
Yeah, I think specifically with the White Sox, like they're not close to contending. And it's kind of weird because like you trade Dylan Cease in the offseason, who was one of the top pitchers, and just threw a no hitter earlier today. And then you have Garrett Crochet, who was a bullpen guy and now is one of the top starters available. You have Luis Robert Jr., who's one of the top center fielders available. They have Tommy Pham over there still, who's probably going to get traded as well. And then they have other guys that have kind of Michael Kopech in the bullpen. So it's like they have all these pieces individually that are going to be probably traded, but overall as a team, they're still really bad. So I feel like for a team like the White Sox, they're probably looking for younger guys, which is good for the Dodgers. The Dodgers do have a lot of younger guys. They're not quite top 100 prospects yet, but they probably will be in the next couple of years. So I think if you just throw a quantity over maybe quality package, that might be something that gets them. What it talked about Schoolboy, but maybe it goes down to Jack Flaherty for the Tigers. The Tigers are probably a little bit closer to contention, so I might take like a Pajes or a Miguel Vargas, somebody that's already major league ready, or one of the starters, like I mentioned, Robleski or River Ryan. Probably not Gavin Stone, who's already established himself as a rotation guy this year. But I think it just depends on the team that they end up trading with. The Rays are always building and retooling and never
Yeah.
really, up or down. So it could go anyway with the Rays. It could be they want major league ready guys or they want guys that will be ready in 4 or 5 years. You never know.
Yeah, we were talking about that in our last episode with the Rays. If you're going to trade away some prospects to get Isaac Paredes because he has 3 years of left on team control, which is going to be with the arbitration, you're probably looking at some MLB ready players. I know Chas McCormick has been having a little struggle this season, really, for the Astros, not getting enough playing time as well because, I mean, Jake Myers is hitting the ball really well. Jordan Alvarez, you got Kyle Tucker, Joey Luperfido kind of makes his name into the mix this season. So more than likely for the Astros, if they're going to try to get Isaac Paredes, you're more than likely going to have a little combination of both of MLB ready talent. I know another guy that could be on that list is Pedro Leon as a prospect. He's been hitting the ball really well in AAA Sugarland. It's going to be very interesting to see what the Astros do because their farm system isn't the best. It is literally not the best. It's like literally the 28th or 29th farm system in Major League Baseball. But the development that they have with these guys like Luis Garcia, Framber Valdez, Jose Urquidy, Christian Javier, none of those guys were top 10, top 5, top prospects in the farm system. They kind of just developed them really well. But the Astros on the other end, Dana Brown had mentioned that they're not going to be going for like that. They'll try to go for guys like the number one, number two starters, like a Jack Flaherty, or I mean, you never know. Garrett Crochet, Tariq Skubal. I don't think it will happen. They're probably going to be targeting guys like a number three and number four starter in a rotation like Cal Quantrill. I know today they recently had mentioned about Jameson Taillon, Eric Fetty with the White Sox as well. But more than anything, it's going to be starting pitching for the Astros on their end. And if that, I mean, they could get a guy like Scuba and Crochet, by gosh, they're probably going to throw away their top 5 players in their farm system. Just there, like if I can remember 2019 for them, then for the Zach Greinke trade, they literally threw 1, 2, 3, and 4 of their farm system and Josh Rojas for Zach Greinke. Did it pay off really well for them, like they were hoping for? No, because Howie Kendrick hit that ball off the foul pole in right field. But it's going to be a very, very interesting trade market because you got a lot of teams that are buying, but you don't have a lot of teams that are selling just for the fact of that third wild card spot in the American League and the National League.
The National League there's like 7, 6, 7, 8 teams all within like 4 games of each other. Like the Braves have really fallen off. The Mets are right there or up there now. It's crazy. And then the American League too, like even the Rays who have struggled are still right there in the thick of it for a wild card spot. And you saw last year, I mean, the Rangers were a wild card team. They were obviously fighting for the division until the end, but the Diamondbacks probably don't make the playoffs if Seiya Suzuki doesn't lose that ball in the sun against the Cubs in that one game, because they finished one game ahead of, I think, the Cubs or whoever it was for the playoff spot, 84 win, 85 wins, whatever they had, and they made a run to the World Series. Like, you just need to get in and hope you get hot. And especially since they've kind of had the buys for the top teams, the Astros are one of the only teams that's really been able to win having that buy in the second round. The Dodgers lost a couple years in a row now in the divisional round. The Braves lost last year too. So yeah, it's fun, I guess, if you're like a fan of baseball, but when you're a fan of a specific team that's usually really good, it's not as fun to have all these teams thinking they have a chance.
I mean, I feel like that's just been like every postseason. 22, you had the Phillies. In 23 last year, like you mentioned, the Diamondbacks. 21, the Braves. I mean, we could go on the list. There's been a bunch of teams, like you were saying. If you get in that wild card spot, you're playing hot baseball at the right time. You have a great possibility of making at least the CS and then possibly the World Series.
Yeah, it's been, even back to 2019, like 2020 is the only time it was 2-1 seeds.
Yeah.
And that one was no buys, but you did have the extra round. But I don't know if that makes a difference. Like, you get to play, but whatever, you didn't have to have those 4 or 5 days off. Yeah, but I mean, 2019, the Nationals were really bad, and until they weren't, and had the worst bullpen ERA going into the postseason, and then their bullpen ended up, shutting things down. And it's weird because you look back, the Dodgers the last three postseasons have lost to three teams that didn't win 90 games.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't. It's not a product of, obviously, the Dodgers had some flaws in some of those years. Like last year, they were a 100-win team, but Lance Lynn was starting Game 3 of the postseason. So I was like, hey, how good were you really when at that time in October? And that's what it matters when you're fighting till the last day and you guys are healthy. It makes a little bit of a difference. So it makes the trade deadline. Every year they say the trade deadline is going to be dead because of that, and then it ends
Mm-hmm.
up being pretty good. So I feel like it'll probably be the same this year.
Yeah, it's gonna be. I think it's gonna be really hectic when it gets to at least Monday, because Wednesday is the day of the deadline that it closes out, and Monday and Tuesday you got a lot of teams trying to figure out, okay, well, is this our best option? Is this the best trade package we can get for this specific player? And just because they're trying to benefit for both sides. One's trying to win to get to the postseason and make a run for a World Series. The other one's trying to build off for their future prospects, all that type of stuff. Maybe even the next season, but like you're saying, trade deadline is going to be really special. It's going to be really fun to be around. But kind of where we're talking about the postseason, the World Series chances, like you were saying for the Dodgers, I mean, I don't know if it's kind of saying disappointing for them. I don't know if you'd like to use that word for the Dodgers' recent postseason appearances, but like you were saying, first round, second round, even it's been really hard for them to get past the same round. And a lot of fans in baseball, I don't know specifically for the Dodgers, Dave Roberts being their manager, not getting out of that hole. I mean, what do you think their World Series chances could be this year? Because this past offseason, if we looked at it, they signed guys like Shohei Ohtani, um, Yamamoto as well, getting Teoscar Hernandez. I thought that was a really great move on their end. So give me your thoughts on their chances, maybe trying to get back to that commissioner's trophy.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard as a Dodger fan just to kind of, you don't want to say, oh, I think they're going to make the World Series, because you don't want to jinx them, like, even though that doesn't
Mhm.
matter in the grand scheme of things. But, and then you kind of really think about it, and, Dodger fans, doing the Dodger podcast and kind of seeing the comments and stuff and everything, it's, oh, we need this, we need that, we need that. And it's like, okay, I understand. Obviously, you want to have the best team possible going into the postseason, but look at the teams that have won the last few years. They're flawed teams that just get hot at the right time. And, last year the Dodgers were down 7-8 runs in that first inning of the first game of the NLDS with the D-backs, and never really recovered from there. Lance Lynn giving up the 4 homers in a row in Game 3, and Mookie Betts and Freddie Freeman combining for one hit. Like, you don't count on that. So if you go by what you can count on, which is, okay, I expect Shohei Ohtani to hit well. I expect Mookie Betts to hit well. I expect Freddie Freeman to hit well. Will Smith, Teoscar to hit, relatively well. Then you're like, okay, then you have a chance offensively. You expect Tyler Glasnow to pitch, relatively well. If Yamamoto's healthy, you expect him to pitch well. Their bullpen guys, Hudson, Trinan, Evan Phillips, who struggled a little bit lately, but you still expect them to pitch well. If Gratterall comes back, he's been a guy for them in the postseason. So you look at all that and you're like, okay, if they just do what you expect them to do, they have a good shot. But they haven't done what you expect them to do. But I do think this year the National League, even though the Dodgers have lost to teams that had 85, 84, 88 wins, whatever, I think it's, overall there's the Phillies, who are a really good team, but even then they've struggled the last week. And then it's the Dodgers, who have a good team if healthy. And then it's the Braves, who have a good team if healthy, but they have a lot of guys that are out for like Acuna and Strider out for the year. There's no chance of them coming back. The Dodgers have a chance of getting Muncy and Mookie back, and Yamamoto at the very least, to give them a shot. And then you look at the rest of the teams that are just kind of there, the D-backs and the Padres, and even the Brewers, who are leading the division, but Christian Yelich might not be healthy the rest of the season too. So you look at the Dodgers' chances, and I think they have a good chance if they play to what you expect. And Dave Roberts has made some bad decisions, and I think some decisions have been overblown. But at the end of the day, I still expect the Dodgers to be in the NLCS at the very least, and hopefully against the Phillies, just for as a fan of baseball, to kind of see that matchup would be fun.
Yeah, I was gonna say who you think would be their biggest competitor going into the postseason. I think you just hit the nail on the coffin right there. The Phillies. I think they got the favorites of winning the World Series. I want to say too.
Yeah. I mean, they got the pitching. We've seen Nola and Wheeler do it the last 2 years, and then they got Schwarber. Home runs matter in the postseason, and Schwarber can hit 199, whatever. But if he hits a leadoff homer in a postseason game, then you're up 1-0, and it doesn't matter if he goes 0 for the rest of the game, because you're already up a run and just have to play to prevent that run from beating you the rest of the game. So it's the Phillies, the D-backs, if they get healthy, are Gallen and Merrill Kelly and Eduardo Rodriguez, like that, and Brandon Pfaadt, who really stepped up last year. Like, that's a good rotation. They just traded for AJ Puck to try to help their bullpen situation out. And even though Corbin Carroll's had a really, really bad year, their offense has still done enough at times. They played the Dodgers pretty tough this year, so they're a team that you probably don't want to play. The Braves are always a team you don't want to play, just because Chris Sale, it can be really good. Charlie Morton can be good. Max Fried is really, really good. So there's a lot of teams that haven't been playing well or consistently well, but they still have guys that, when you get to October, it's the guys who perform that matter.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Philadelphia Phillies lead the National League. The Dodgers are second. Third are the Milwaukee Brewers, and the wild card you got the Braves, like you were mentioning. The New York Mets. I mean, the Grimace at this point is just helping them out so much. They're following behind him, and then the San Diego Padres. But like that wild card, man, like you were mentioning, St. Louis is just a half game back of that third spot. The Diamondbacks is one game. Even the Pirates, the Pittsburgh Pirates, one half game back with Paul Skeens and what's that guy's name?
I mean, Skeens, Jared Jones, and Mitch
Jared Jones.
Keller
There it is.
are it's a
Yeah.
good top three if you've had to face them in a round. Like, it's tough.
Yeah. I mean, the Pirates have been playing good baseball. There's honestly a strong chance that they're probably buying at the deadline as well to get their team better. But for the American League, real quick, I mean, you got the Cleveland Guardians, the Baltimore Orioles, Houston would be third. Then the wild card, you would have the New York Yankees, the Minnesota Twins, the Kansas City Royals, and then for the wild card of sake, for that third spot, you have the Boston Red Sox with one game back, the Mariners 3.5 games back of that last spot. And then we'll count the Tampa Bay Rays being four in that spot. But for Houston, um, they played really well against the Baltimore Orioles. I honestly thought it'd kind of be like a 2 out of 3 series or either side, but the Astros swept them, which was shocking to me. They did play really well against the Guardians at the beginning of the season. The Yankees has had the Astros number this season. When it comes to the playoff time, it looks like a different story. But this season, with the addition of Juan Soto, they look like a different ball club. As of late, they've been playing some horrific baseball, but when it comes to the postseason, anything can happen. The Minnesota Twins as well. Um, you would expect them to be buying some type of pitching or a decent hitter, but I don't know how their pocketbook is going to look like. And then the Kansas City Royals, Bobby Witt Jr. My gosh, that is the guy you want to build a team around. I think he's been one of the hottest hitters, at least after the All Star break this year.
He's hitting 698 since the All Star break ended. Like, it's only 7 games, but still, you're hitting 700 in those 7 games or whatever. So it's crazy.
I mean, the kid was close to hitting for the cycle,
Yeah,
literally.
yeah,
The
yeah. I mean, they
last,
made it. I like the Royals being there because they spent some money this offseason. They went and got Seth Lugo. They extended Bobby Witt. They signed one other pitcher. I can't remember right now off the top of my head, but like they went and spent some money and had some young guys develop. And they were hot. They got a little cold there. They've been a little bit streaky, but I like when teams are rewarded for actually trying to win.
yeah. I mean, Cole Reagans and Seth Lugo, that's a good 1-2 punch right there. Because Reagan's last, in the second half of that last season, when the Rangers had traded him away, he looked like a different animal. But the Red Sox, too, just getting extended Alex Cora for the next 3 years, I thought that was very important for them. Jaron Duran, too, after winning that All Star Game MVP, he's looked like a different animal. Probably one of the best seasons he's played in his career. Seattle Mariners are kind of a disappointing team as a baseball fan, as a baseball writer. I would say for the Mariners, one of the best. Like I said, they have like at least a top five starting rotation in Major League Baseball with George Kirby, Luis Castillo, Brian Woo's been good, Bryce Miller's been good. They have a really good rotation, but the offense is just very, very bad, very, very bad.
Yeah, it's bad, and like there's no one they can call up right now. They're gonna have to maybe try to make a trade, but yeah, I mean, but it might be like the stadium. Teo had a bad year last year with them, and then he
Mm-hmm.
came to the Dodgers, and he's been better, and whatever it is over there in Seattle, they just can't seem to get the hitting.
No, it was kind of like that for the Astros in that second half of the season. They couldn't win at home to save their lives. But this year, they look like a different team playing at home. They've done really well too, playing at Minute Maid Park this season. So let me put you on the spot real quick. What do you think? Give me a World Series matchup. If it's not the Dodgers, what two teams do you think would be in this year's World Series?
Selfishly, I would want the Phillies to make it again because I get to travel for World Series and I love Philadelphia. That stadium during the postseason is just fun. Um, and I think they're just a good team. Like I think they when you taste it twice, like they were up 3-2 last year in the CS and then ended up losing the last two games. They, made it to the World Series the year before that. I think they'll get back there if it's not the Dodgers. I think in the AL, if it's not the Astros, because I'll just keep that theme going. Um, my Before the season, I picked Dodgers Yankees, which is a very like biased and easy pick. Uh, but I don't think the Yankees are just not there. I don't know. I don't buy the Orioles yet, even with Corbin Burns.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I haven't bought into them yet. Uh, I haven't been to Cleveland, so I'd like to knock that stadium off my list. I'll go with Cleveland just for fun.
Cleveland. Okay, okay. American League, you have Cleveland Guardians and the Philadelphia Phillies.
Yeah, that's
That's not bad.
yeah. It's not made. It's more based on where I want to go in October rather than who I actually think is going to be there.
Oh man. For me, if it's not because I covered the Astros, if it's not the Astros in the American League, um, man, Minnesota Twins, I really like their lineup. I like their bullpen, their rotation. Um, but for some reason, I mean, right now it's telling me the Baltimore Orioles. Like you were mentioning, Corbin Burns. Um, I mean, the Orioles last season, they honestly had a chance. They had a great chance. They were the number one seed in the American League, and they had a chance to do it against the Rangers. But that's a young core, and that young core kind of reminds me of the Astros back in 2015 and that 2017 era. And obviously, they had Mike Elias, who was a part of the Astros organization, as well as Sigma Dale. But I'd go Orioles just for the fact Gunnar Henderson's really played phenomenal. Adley Rutschman, of course, can't go wrong with him. Corbin Burns, Grayson Rodriguez has been pitching really well this season. I think their starting rotation is going to be very key for them too because they've lost Kyle Bradish, they've lost Taylor Wells as well. I mean, that's going to hurt them if they don't pick up a starting pitcher. So I'll go Orioles and the National League. Man, I do like. I agree with you. The Phillies are kind of one of the most funnest teams in baseball right now. I mean, their lineup's good, their starting pitching's good, their bullpen's good. Um, so I'll go Orioles and I'll go Phillies on my end.
Yeah, I will say Orioles, if they use their prospect depth to go get one more starter, I think that elevates them into a different tier in that American League because, Burns is good, But if you have Burns and Grayson Rodriguez has been good, but if you have Burns and somebody else before you get to
Yeah,
Grayson, that's where you want to see. And it wouldn't cost them anyone out. Like even if you trade Jackson Holiday and get like a Scooble or
exactly.
a Crochet, like you already have your starting infield set pretty much, and your outfield is
Yeah.
kind of set too. You might trade one the other young guy, but then they just got they're getting new owners, so they might be more liable to spend a little bit of money too. So
Yeah, and they got an interesting prospect. I'm very a fan of Samuel Basayo. That kid's young. He's a catcher that's already coming up in the farm system pretty quick. I wonder what they're going to do with him. They could be possibly putting him at first base. I think the Orioles had mentioned Rob Mountcastle is going to be on the trade block, if I'm not mistaken.
yeah, Messiah. Oh, I talked to him at the Futures game. Yeah, he's cool.
Yeah, he's cool people. But like you were mentioning, Jackson Holiday for a Tyreek Screwball, I wouldn't mind if I'm in that position. I wouldn't mind doing that because you got a Cy Young guy like him that's been pitching really well in the last 2 seasons.
And you got him
Lock
for
down
three
him,
Octobers.
yeah, lock him down that rotation. And then I mean they have so many prospects: Kobe Mayo, Kierstad too, Cone Cowser. They got a lot of prospects to use. I don't know if they're not ready to set them off yet.
I think it like you mentioned them kind of remind you of the Astros, like, and it didn't cost them prospects because it was a waiver wire trade, but like
Mhm.
Justin Verlander trade is kind of what put the Astros over the top and got them to where they needed to go. I think that's what they kind of need is that one trade for another starter that really solidifies the rotation.
Yeah, it's going to be definitely fun. Astros are going to try to make it 8 ALCS appearances at least in a row. So if they can make the postseason, they could also make some history with them '90s Braves who did it. I want to say 7 years in a row too. I don't think they made it 8 years in the '90s, but when you got a rotation like Greg Maddux, Tom Glavine, and John Smoltz, I mean, shit, you're pretty solidifying that National League. But Vance, I appreciate taking your time out of your day to come and talk this preview the Astros and Dodgers. That's always fun, like you were saying, for the baseball world when it comes to these two teams, because obviously the history of the 2017 cheating scandal and all that. But these two teams are just so great when it comes to defense, offense, pitching, all them three tiers you would say when it comes to baseball.
Yeah, I mean, almost a decade of playoff appearances in a row for both teams. So, even if the cheating scandal hadn't happened, it would still be a fun matchup. That just adds the extra talk between fans. But,
Mhm.
it's a lot of those, none of those guys are really here anymore. So it's just, now it's
Yeah.
just a matter of, good baseball being played.
Yeah, I want to say the last time no, they had a what was it? 2017, 2023, which was just last year, did not feature either the Dodgers or the Astros in the World Series. That's how good these two teams have been.
Yeah.
But like I said, Vince, I appreciate you taking your time out of your day to talk the Astros and Dodgers preview. Fans that's listening to the show, if you want to follow Vince on his journey with the Dodgers, of course, he does do the Locked On Dodgers podcast. His Twitter handle is right there. Vince, if you want to tell them where else they could follow you on your social media or even the Dodger podcast as well, feel free, man.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm at Vincent91 on all platforms. And then I'm Locked On Dodgers is at Locked On Dodgers on all platforms too. I'll also plug my day job. I work for Bleacher Report. I run their baseball brand, BR Walkoff. So if you like baseball in general, that's a good follow at BR Walkoff everywhere. So
Definitely. That team over there is doing a hell of a job. It's going to be doing a hell of a more job when it comes to the trade deadline. But Vince, I appreciate you taking your time out today. Everybody else that's listening to the pod, if you're on YouTube, make sure you go. Well, no, actually, if you're on Twitter, make sure you go to YouTube, hit that subscribe button on our Full Steam Ahead podcast as well. Hit that like video and on our social media platforms from Twitter to Instagram to TikTok with all the content coming out. It's going to be really fun coming to see this Dodgers and Astros matchup, as well as the Spotify and Apple as our podcast platforms. But appreciate you, everybody in the Central Time Zone, 11:36 over here, the West Coast. I know it's 9:36. Appreciate everybody taking the time out of their night to listen to us. Till then, we'll give you that recap of this Dodger series and get that preview going for the Pirate series. Until then, y'all stay safe. Have a blessed weekend.